In some content I do, sometimes you can read about the words data stack. That can mean also a set of tools and machines of your company that help you to become data driven or data informed. In this video you will see a somewhat basic example that involves an automation platform alternative to Zapier that many potential clients and clients I met already know. Suppose you have a form on your website to collect leads, so people potentially interested in what you offer. Let's suppose that you collect such data with a Google form, and that Google form is by default linked to a specific Google spreadsheet. You see that I put a node for that trigger when we have a new row, that means lead, and then we have three different outputs for this. The first one creates a new contact on an open source CRM, that is Mautic. You could say I could have put a Mautic form inside the website, so I could have skipped this step. I agree with that. And in fact, also for this reason, I put this note. You can put whatever form solution you prefer, open or non-open source. Then I put the data also inside Postgres, that is a technology for having a database. And also here you could say, but you could create a different automation just for linking Mautic to Postgres. I agree, but as I said, this is a somewhat basic example. Then, as an alternative to Postgre, I put also NoCodeDB, that means no-code database. That is something that probably you will see in another video. And I put it because some companies prefer Airtable to Google Sheets, and personally I prefer NoCodeDB, even though I don't like Airtable. So I generally suggest NoCodeDB if you want to use something very similar to Airtable, but generally I suggest Google Sheets. Then let's say that you know that if leads have a certain feature, they more likely become a customer. Let's say that you can hard code this condition because you also put a specific question in the form, and if it is the case, send a Telegram notification to your sales representative if you have them or one in your team. Let's say instead that you have a less clear indication that you could have a potential client. You could elaborate the certain data you have of your potential client with a large linguistic model that uses the fastest technology existing today, at least for free, that is Grok with a Q, and you could elaborate a tailor-made message to send them on WhatsApp. And notice that the tailor-made in this case comes from this node. That can mean a lot of stuff. Data enrichment, so back-end information technology, or a statistical model. I remind you that HTTP generally means an API, so a waiter of data, a word that often returns in this channel. Of course, if you do this, you have to specify also in the privacy policy that you can add in the form, or in the case of Facebook leads, they ask you to put directly the link of your privacy policy. As you can see, the data stack here has many components. In the case we just discussed, we have the data part, that is a form that brings the data inside a spreadsheet. Then the spreadsheet puts the data inside a specific, let's call it a spreadsheet for clients and potential clients, and it backups the data inside a proper database. Then the contact gets elaborated with a, in this case, simple if-else, and with a much more complex elaboration based on statistical linguistic model with a tool that can help, for example, data enrichment. That leads to a WhatsApp message tailor-made for the specific client. I want to underline again that without this, the AI agent most likely becomes a nuisance for the potential client because the message will look extremely standardized, cliché, or whatever, not effective. Also, if we have another kind of positive elaboration, the sales rep receives a signal. As you can understand, this data stack involves mainly IT. It can involve also statistics in the case of a statistical model that predict if you will have client. Also statistics is involved here, but in a broader term. Then the data can be processed not just as mentioned here, but in a visual term from Postgre or also MongoDB. But let's start from Postgre. I sometimes mention a business intelligence solution or data visualization. This Looker of Google, and if we go here, we see that we have the Postgre connector. Here we go inside the difficult part of this video, that is the credentials. If you have a public exposed SQL instance, is a security issue, and that is one part. The second part is that in the username and password you want a read-only user. Also, the difficult part for credentials mostly come from Google services because the others are quite easy in my experience. For example, for Grok, you just need to paste the API key. It takes 3 clicks as showed in a previous video. For Telegram, it is more difficult than Grok, but easier than Google, and in my experience the most difficult part is the chat ID, that the bot father doesn't say so clearly when you create a bot. Then the rest, as I said, is easy. You can add whatever form you prefer. So if you run Facebook ads for leads, it's the same process. Of course, I expect more inflow of data, and of course it could become reasonable to split some parts of this flow for a matter of computational usage and possible delays, but the process is the same. Again, this data stack has different parts: data acquisition, data storage, data elaboration, some data backups, then data elaboration, also advanced elaboration, and delivery, some messages that could prompt actions. I know firsthand that NA10 compared to Zapier looks more overwhelming and it has a steeper learning curve. And also for this reason, if this video inspired you something that can help you save time, we can first discuss it in a free call you can book in the link you see in the description. Bye and see you the next time.